What's up everyone? Today I want to share one of the best and most fun monk builds I've played so far in Path of Exile 2. And it's an Ice and Thunder avatar build. This build has been destroying everything. I've been playing this for a week now and I keep tweaking it to make it better. And it's at a point now where I want to share it. This is destroying everything. Tier 15 maps, endgame bosses, high level breaches. And the best thing is it is super easy to make. I'm going to show you the progression of this. I'm going to show you the early game version so you can finish the campaign, you can use that and you can jump straight into maps. You can use it to go and get your 3rd and 4th ascendancy, you can build up your gear and you can level with this build. It will be a very good build to carry you through endgame. And then I'm going to show you the endgame version and how to get there. So which gem slots to get 4 slots on, once you get more spirit, which spirit gems to go for, that kind of thing, and certain things to look for on gear as you're leveling. So I'll have that, and I'm also going to have a link down below to the full build, which will have both variants, the early game and then like the tier 15 end game plus bosses build. As well as that, I want to really explain how this works. Okay, so let's go over the elemental avatar build. Let's talk how it works, because you might be playing something similar. You might be playing like an ice monk or a thunder monk and not seeing the same levels of damage where everything on the screen just pops in 1 second. Or you might be getting one shot and not understand why your defenses are so low. I want to go over some of the mechanics that make this so strong. So hopefully, even if you're not going to play this build exactly, there's something here that will help. So if we go into the passive tree, the main thing we're focusing on is down here. There is something called an I Shall Rage, and this is your ascendancy, grants unbound avatar. So how this works is every time you inflict elemental ailments, you build up a meter to 100. When you hit 100, you'll have a button on your bar and you can press it and become the unbound avatar. When you are in this unbound avatar state, you get 40% more elemental damage, 40% infliction, and then 80% more chance to inflict. So basically, everything that we do well, we do 40 and 80% better. Okay, now let's talk about how we're just wiping out the screen in like a second, how we're just destroying everything with one ability. So it's the Ice Shatter combo. So we use Ice Strike, and you can see here, converts 80% of physical damage to cold damage. This is our main attack. So all we have to do is stack physical damage everywhere. On your staff, physical damage, on your rings, physical damage. You can even use gems like Heft, which increase physical damage. And then it all gets converted to cold, and that means we have a higher chance of freezing the enemy. Then we go down to our Herald of Ice. While active, shattering an enemy with an attack causes this big ice damage to deal to all surrounding enemies. So if you freeze an enemy, you shatter it, everything around just goes, everything gets shattered. And that's how you see this big pop of everything on the screen. It just spreads all the way along the screen. This is our main source of damage. Next, I want to talk about a trick you can do with Herald of Ice and Thunder to gain a lot more clear speed. So you'll see, like, as we're moving around, we're getting loads of lightning coming down and we're getting loads of shattering, which is triggering more lightning and triggering more shattering. But why are we getting so much? Well, what we do is on Herald of Ice, we add a lightning infusion, which means that the Herald of Ice now deals lightning damage, but it deals less cold. And then same on the Herald of Thunder, we use a cold infusion so that the Thunder deals cold damage. The way that works is they deal a little bit less damage of their own element. However, they are proccing each other. So your lightning is proccing the shattering and the shattering is proccing the lightning, and you're getting them come down all the time, which means you're getting this really high clear speed. And we can boost these even further. So if I go in the skill tree, we have this little cluster over here, which gives increased damage to Herald abilities, and here, 50% increased cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice, 50% increased lightning while affected by Herald of Thunder. So that's why, even though we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in the damage with the gems, it makes up for it here. Alternatively, we go down here and we can use the Doomsayer, which we can get on our necklace, which I'll show you how to do, which gives Herald skills 30% increased damage and 30% increased area of effect, which is how we're destroying stuff that's not even in the screen. Okay, so yeah, that's how the build works. Hopefully that helps. Now let's go into more detail, the passive tree, gear options, and the gems. So let me get this up here. This is our, this is the build for it. I've linked this down below. This is the full build, and it has 2 variants. There's the early game version, which is when you've just finished the campaign, and I've capped all of the gems at 3. We've only got 2 passive abilities, so it's quite easy to get into. This is what you can start using as soon as you get to endgame. And then when you're working towards this is your tier 15 and bosses, and it has like tier 4 gems, has all of the passives once you've got more spirit, stuff like that. So hopefully this helped. And if you like this style of build guide, if you're finding this useful, do consider subscribing to the channel. I've been making a ton of Path of Exile 2 content, so I'd really appreciate that. But let's get into this, starting with the gems. So in the early game version of this, when you only have like 3 gem slots, here's what I would do. I'd go for Ice Strike as your main ability. I would go with martial tempo for attack speed, 25% attack speed. I'd go for concentrated effect for more area damage. And then I would go for primal armament for more elemental damage. That's going to take you very far. Okay, next up is Flicker Strike. The way Flicker Strike works is it's the one where we use our power charges to just teleport around the screen. You teleport around the screen as fast as possible, you get crazy attack speed, and it can be extremely satisfying. I'm going to give you some times to use it and some times to not. The ways I would use this is if you're in a small area. If you're in lots of maps have like corridors, if you're in that sort of area and you Flicker Strike, you will just delete everything. Because the way the damage works and the way the abilities and the heralds work, everything just melts. If you're in a position where things are closing in on you and you're feeling a bit like you need to get out, Flicker Strike will hit everything around you, potentially finish them off, and it will get you out of that pack, which can be really, really helpful. The ways I wouldn't use this is if there's like burning ground or like AoE status effects on the ground, I wouldn't use it because you could Flicker Strike onto it. I wouldn't use it if there are like elites around on the screen that you don't think you can finish with it because you're potentially going to flicker into their abilities. So yeah, it can be very, very good in breaches, in small spaces, and for just finishing loads of weaker mobs. With that, I would go for Perpetual Charge, a chance not to use the charges. I'd go for Ice Bite, which makes it really good on elites because after you freeze an enemy, you gain cold damage. And then I would go for Heavy Swing, deals more physical damage. Okay, next Tempest Bell. Tempest Bell is our boss destroyer. You hit the enemy 4 times, you drop down a bell, and it kind of echoes all of your damage. It echoes everything you're doing. It deals extra ailments all around you. So if you're dealing lightning, ice, you've got your charge staff on, this is just great. You'd go with that, I'd go for Overabundance, so you can drop an additional one, so you can trigger even more. I'd go for Rage. This is our only way in this build to generate Rage, which is giving us more damage. And then I would go for Font of Rage, so when you're dropping it, you're gaining additional rage generation. It's really good for bosses. Like I say, this is amazing for clearing big packs of mobs. So the Tempest Bell gives us an option for bosses as well. Then I would go for Charge Staff. This is, you use your power charges to gain a buff, giving us the Lightning Staff. This is an incredible ability always. 40% more skill duration, so it lasts longer. I'd go for Conduction for more chance to shock, and I would go for Lightning Penetration to penetrate lightning resistances. And then we've got Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. I've already talked about the combo we need to use on these. So we need to use the Lightning Fusion on the Herald of Ice, and then we need to use the Cold Infusion on the Herald of Thunder. I talked about it in the How the Build Works section, so I'm not going to talk about it all over again, but that is how we proc so much. It's how they trigger each other. Then I would go for Magnified Effect on the ice, so it has more area effect. I'd go for Glaciation for freeze buildup. On Herald of Thunder, I'd go for Ambush, so that they has more crit when enemies are at full health, which they will be when they're off the screen. And then I would go for Culling Strike, so that we can cull rare and unique enemies. We don't really have Culling Strike anywhere else on the build, and there's not that many options I would put here, so this one works quite well. The final thing I just forgot to have on the planner was Combat Frenzy. This is very important in the early game version, as it's how we get our charges. So while active, grants you a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy once every few seconds. The reason this is so important is as we're doing everything, we're dealing damage, we're freezing, we're shocking, things like that. We are generating frenzy charges. In our passive tree, we have a node here called Resonance. Gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. So basically, as we're doing all this stuff, we're getting frenzy charges. That's turning into power charges, and that's how we're able to use our charge staff, and it's how we're able to use our Flicker Strike. So yeah, that's one to definitely get as soon as you can. It's our main, so you don't have to worry about all those, palm strike, things like that. We could just not worry about getting our charges. Now let's talk about what you want to be progressing to. If you have the ability to get a 4th gem slot, what should you use it on? And as your spirit increases, what do you want to be going for on the extra spirit gems? So if we go to the end game version, here's what you're going to be working towards. So on your ascendancy, there's a node down here, look, on your ascendancy called Lead Me Through Grace. And it means you gain spirit for every evasion and energy shield on your body armor. You want to be getting that. That's one of the most essential ascension nodes that you can get. This will give you more spirit. And as you get better equipment, as your chest piece increases, you should be prioritizing getting a chest piece with really good energy shield and evasion on. You will have more spirit, meaning you can use more of the spirit gems. Okay, so first we go for Ghost Dance. This is periodically gain Ghost Shrouds. If you're hit while you have a Ghost Shroud, it's consumed to recover energy shield. Energy shield is, I don't want to say broken, but it's pretty potent. It's for what you get, it's very, very, very good because of how much stuff it stops and how easy it is to get it back. So this is really, really good. And then we go for fast forward so that we don't have as much downtime with this. And then we go for precision to increase our accuracy rating. The final one I'd go for would be wind dancer. This it's like it builds up, and the more it builds, the more evasion you get. So it goes through 3 stages, giving you more and more evasion. If you upgrade it with quality, you can even go to 4 stages, which is good. This is a build that doesn't really have much defenses, but it does have a lot of energy shield and a lot of evasion. So you're kind of avoiding a lot of damage. And when you do take it, you pop your energy shield and your energy shield comes back. That's kind of how you're staying alive with this build. You're not tanking too many hits, even though you're going to be a little bit in melee. Yeah, that's pretty much all of the gems. The only other thing to talk about is the 4th slots. So as you're playing, you're going to have the ability to get 4 gem slots, either through using a Val Orb or through finding a gem slot that takes it to 4. These kind of things are quite rare to find. So here's what I'd be going for in the order that you can. First, I would get Ice Strike. I'd get Ice Strike and I would add Heft, 30% more physical damage. This converts to ice, 80% gets converted to ice anyway. So this works really well in getting an extra damage increase. The second thing I would go for would be Herald of Ice. I'd go for Frost Nexus on Herald of Ice to create chilled ground. This works really, really well when we're moving between packs fast. A lot of the time, you're flickering between packs, you're moving back and forward, and the chilled ground just helps give you that extra chance to freeze enemies, shatter enemies, and clear the screen. So I think that works really well. I also went for Tempest Spell and Ruthless just on bosses to have a little bit more, a bit more stagger on the bosses. But that's all the gem slots I'm running. I don't have anything at 5 slots, and it clears the end game completely fine. If you have any recommendations on things you've tried in a similar build, do let me know, do let other people know. But this has worked very, very well for me so far. Okay, now let's go through some gearing tips. So the first thing I would be working on as soon as you finish the campaign, the first thing I'd be looking to upgrade, do your endgame activities, try and find different things. You want to try and craft or find a really good chest piece. You want to get a good chest piece with really high evasion rating and really high energy shield. You can also increase the quality to increase that as well. You can find stats like increased evasion and energy shield, maximum energy shield, evasion. The reason for that is because of our passive tree point, Lead Me Through Grace, 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield and 1 spirit for every 15 evasion. So you want to make sure you're getting a really good chest piece, as that will give you more spirit, which means you can have everything else in our spirit gems. It means you can have Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer for really, really good evasion, really good end game survivability. So that would be my priority that I'd be going for. The next thing you want to go for is a really high physical damage staff. You can see here, you want this number to be as high as possible. Mine's like 290 to 520. You want to get that number as high as possible, because all of our damage on Ice Strike gets 80% gets converted to cold. So you definitely want to get as much physical damage as possible. The way you can do that is increase physical damage, adds to physical damage, things like that. So yeah, these two would be the 2 things that are going to drive most of your end game. If you're struggling in tier 1 and 2 maps, these are the 2 things that are going to push you into like the 10s and plus. So yeah, I'd go for that. Everything else, I'm going to talk through the guide first. So if I go to this here and we go over here, what I've tried to do here is I've tried to list the stats on your gear that lead to a damage increase. So if you look on like the staff, here's what you want to be looking for on the staff. Is it going to show if I go up? Here we go. So you want to be going for increased physical, increased elemental, increased attack speed, increased crit, and increased crit damage bonus. Anything like that. Things like that. On the head, they can have crit chance. On the rings, they can have cold damage to attacks, increased cold damage, and increased percent cold damage. So I've kind of listed here the main things we're looking for on each piece of equipment. So hopefully that helps you find, the things that you're going to want on your gear. Once you have those stat boosting things, once you have like cold damage, physical damage, crit, attack speed, then you want to be going to max your resistances. You want to get as high resistances as possible. You want to be getting energy shield increases, max life, and rarity where possible. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, and I'll say like almost all of my damage is just coming from my staff. You can see on like 70,000 damage on Ice Strike. If I take off like my gloves, I lose 5k. Take off this ring, I lose 2k. Most of it's coming from the staff. So if you have better gear than me, you're going to do a lot more damage. My gears, other than those 2 items, it's very basic. The next thing I'll be trying to do is just try and make sure you have really good evasion rating and really good energy shield. I've got like 2.6k energy shield right now because I've tried to make sure that the items I've got are all 20% quality and they are at a good level, so like level 75 helmet with a good amount of energy shield and evasion rating. If you're using like a level 40 piece at level 80, you're not going to have that same level, and you might be getting one shot more often. But yeah, that's everything I would say on the gear, really. There's nothing crazy complex about it. Hopefully that helps. Okay, now let's go over the passive tree. So if we go to the passive tree, on the ascendancies first, you want to be getting this. This is your primary ascendancy, Lead Me Through Grace. 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield and 1 spirit for every 15 evasion on your body armor, which is why the body armor is so important. I'm sitting right now with 222 spirit, which is enough for all of the spirit gems that we want. Then I would go down here, I'd get I Am the Blizzard for cold damage and chilled ground, and I would get I Shall Rage for the unbound avatar. I spoke about this at the start, but unbound avatar goes on your bar as a new ability. Every time you hit 100, you pop unbound avatar, and your damage just goes through the roof. Melts bosses, melts breaches, anything with lots of mobs, that's the time to use that. And then with your final one, I would go for Sunder My Enemies. For critical hits, ignore elemental resistances. This is a very crit heavy build, which you'll see in the passive tree. I think I'm running 50% crit chance right now, or just over. And you want as much as possible. And that means that when you're going up against a mob that's like cold resistance, which some unfortunately are, you get a bit of relief on that. Okay, now let's go through the passive tree. In the planner, I've linked an early game version and an end game version, but the main things we're looking for here are crit chance, crit damage, attack speed, energy shield, evasion, and any bonuses to lightning or cold damage. That's pretty much what we're doing here. So starting down here, we run it straight down here for attack speed and stats. We ride up to here and we get crit strike, increased damage if you've crit. We go to here for extra lightning damage and shock. We come up to here and then we wrap around down to here for 5% extra cold damage. The way that the damage conversion stuff work, extra is always on top. So any chance to get extra damage is worth getting. And we get freeze build up, which is it's good for helping us shatter our enemies. We take this little one in the inner circle here as well for evasion and energy shield, down to here for movement speed, mana regen, and some more stats. Okay, now we take this there's like this crit cluster. There's 2 here and there's 1 up here. You want to go up to here and get these 3 for critical. You want to get these down here for crit chance, and then you want to come up to here and get all of these for crit chance, crit damage, crit chance, all that sort of stuff. Get this cluster down here for energy shield, and then you want to come along here. You want to get this cluster for attack speed and this for increased damage. Then you come up to here and you want to get resonance, gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. With our passive, with our combat frenzy, we generate frenzy charges all the time, and we're just turning those into power charges, which power up our charged staff and used in our flicker strike. So basically with that, you don't have to worry about ever running out of charges. Okay, then I would come up here to get the gem slot, and I would wrap into here for attack speed. Okay, once you've done that, you've kind of got this cluster complete. Then you want to go up here. You want to get this evasion cluster here. 1 max energy shield per 12 evasion on your equipped body armor. And we've already said we're going for like a juiced out body armor because it's what gives us our spirit. So you want to get that because it's just a massive boost to our energy shield. Then you come up here and get the next gem socket. Now you have a choice. You either go up here or you go down here. I would go first and get this cluster here. 50% increased crit chance is massive. And the earlier you are in the end game, the less crit you probably have. So it's a reduction in the damage, but you need the crit chance. Then I would come down into here. I'd get this staff cluster here, this quarter staff cluster, attack speed, increased chance to freeze. We've got down here, we've got increased accuracy and crit damage, all really good stuff. And we got some good stats on there as well. Then down to here, you want to get these herald abilities, increased damage by herald, 50% increased cold when affected by Herald of the Ice, 50% increased lightning while affected by Herald of Thunder. This is massive. Then you've got another crit cluster here, increased crit chance, increased crit chance. Then I would come into here and get all of these. Evasion, 25 dex, and then into here, 1% attack speed per 15 dex. That's where I am right now. That's where my build is right now. The things I'm going to be going for next as I gain more levels, I'm only level 89, so I've got a few more levels to go. And the place I'm going to be going next, I'm going to get this thing here for increased evasion and 8% dex, which works really well with our Falcon technique. I'm going to come up to here and I'm going to go down to here and get an extra gem slot. And then I'm going to come up to here and you can kind of type in, if you're not sure where to go, you can go energy shield, see where the energy shields are. I think I'm in a good place with that. You can type in crit, and I'm pretty sure we've got most of the big crit clusters. You can type in like lightning, you can type in freeze. There's 2 freeze things here, which I'm working my way to next, for a freeze build up and freeze build up. And then I don't think anything else is good, but all these cold damages, I'm going to test this out. There's this one here and this one here. So these 4 nodes here, I'm going to try as well. I've linked everything in the planner and I'm going to be updating it. Obviously, I can't talk for things I haven't done yet, but that's my plan and it's in the planner. And if I try something and it works better, I'll update it. But that's pretty much the build. I will say gem slots are very, very good in this build. Crit chance for attacks, damage with quarterstaffs, things like that. There's some really good things you can get on gems. I've got another one here. Increased attack speed, increased attack damage, damage with quarterstaffs. There's really, really juicy things you can get. So definitely try and, I've got herald skills, still 19% increased damage. Definitely try and get your gems in a good place. Another thing is I mentioned down here, I have this as well. Herald skills have 30% increased area of effect. Herald skills deal 30% increased damage. This is coming from our neck. So we have allocates Doomsayer. If you're completely new to the game and you don't know how that works, if you're new to Endgame, you've not done this before, what you do is if you go into your passive tree and you find the ability that you want, so say Doomsayer, you hold Alt, or I guess it'd be like thumbstick on PlayStation, Xbox, and then you go up to here and it says Distilled Emotions, Paranoia, Guilt, and Disgust. So you would go to your, as you do Deliriums at Endgame, you'll get these emotions, and it was Paranoia, Guilt, and Disgust. It needs to be in the order it was in the planner. So it was Paranoia, Guilt, then Disgust. You would right click on Paranoia, put that in, Guilt, and then Disgust. You'd put your neck in, and that will allocate Doomsayer, so you get that passive point on your neck, which is massive. It's how we get a passive point that's really, really far away on our necklace, without really having to go all the way down there. But yeah, that's the build. That's everything. I really hope this has helped. I've tried to go into as much detail as possible, but if you have any questions, do let me know. This is honestly one of my favorite builds so far. It's really fun. It's clearing pretty much everything. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, let me know. If you found it useful, do consider subscribing. I've been making a ton of Path of Exile 2 content, and there's a lot more to come. So yeah, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.